Welcome back to my channel, Simplified English 101. If you are new to this channel, please remember, like this video, leave a comment. Do not forget to subscribe to my channel and ring that good old notification bell so that you can be informed when a new video is posted. In today's lesson, I will be focusing on the reflection tool. I will look at how to analyze the use of language in your artifacts. Feel free to check out the new English Language and Literature SBA book, A Student's Guide to Receiving Grade 1. This can be found on all Amazon platforms, or you can reach out to me in the comment section of this channel and I can tell you where and how to also get a copy of this book. For this lesson, we are going to be looking at how to identify aspects of a written or spoken language. Since we're doing the English Language SBA, we are going to be focusing on aspects of English language, whether written or spoken. We're going to define the use of language, what it means to you or what it should mean, how to identify the use of language in your particular artifact. We will analyze a sample artifact as well as write a sample reflection too. The question is, what is reflection 2? Unlike the reflection 1, where you are expected to examine what you have learned from the artifacts, its impact on you, among other things, reflection 2 wants you to focus on the use of language. In doing so, you are expected to examine all aspects of a written or spoken language. Rather, all aspects of English language. You are to examine how the aspects of English language, whether written or spoken, are used. And finally, the effectiveness of the used aspects of the language. So let me break it down for you. All languages, whether written or verbal, have different features. As a user of a language, English language, there are certain things that are involved or contribute to how we communicate our messages and thoughts, and how we get others to understand what we want to communicate to them. One such thing to consider is your lexicon. As individuals, your vocabulary is different from mine. The words that you use and are familiar with are sometimes not the same as your friends or your cousins or your parents. So, the vocabulary used is one thing to consider when thinking about the use of language in your reflection tool. When you select your artifact, you want to think about what words are used, why are they used, when are they used, and the impact or effectiveness of these words. The artifacts that you have for your SBA, you are going to be examining the vocabulary or language. This is one thing that you can consider when looking at the use of language. How are the words used by the creator of the piece? Another thing to look at is the syntax. This is the use of words. Now, the words we mentioned before that make up your vocabulary. This is the use of these words to create phrases, sentences, paragraphs, extended pieces of writing, etc. Now, we know that we use our words to create sentences, and these help us to convey our intended meaning, and in doing so, we expect that our sentences, our words are placed in certain order. So when you select your artifacts, you want to think about the type of expression used, the type or kind of sentences used, whether simple, compound, complex, or compound complex, or whether it's a question sentence, a command sentence, an exclamatory sentence, or a statement sentence. You also want to consider the purpose of these types of sentences. So now you know that there are two things that you look out for when looking at your artifacts. These are two aspects of the language that are used by these creators that you need to pay attention to. In looking at the syntax, there are these sentences and paragraphs that we will create. Now, these sentences and paragraphs and words are going to create extended pieces of writing. When you think about the extended pieces of writing, the first thing that should come to mind is an essay or any form of essay. We know that there are different types or styles of extended writing, and you should know that too because you're doing your SBA. It clearly means that you are in grade 11 for the most part, and you have been exposed to the different styles or types of writing. So once you're able to identify the purpose why authors write, then you can identify the styles of writing. These include persuasive pieces or informative pieces, or pieces that entertain, narrative pieces, which can also include poems and songs, etc. And finally, descriptive pieces. Each of these writing styles that you have been using over the school year have different features, purposes, organizational patterns, among other things. So when you find an artifact, if it's an essay or if it's an article, you need to identify what style does it take. Is it persuasive in nature, informative, narrative, or descriptive? And then you can go on to look at other features of this style that can be employed by the creator. And these are aspects in which language are used. As the student and the researcher for your SBA, you need to decide if the piece you select falls under any of the above writing styles and then examine it for the use of vocabulary, syntax, and the different meaning. Finally, I'll encourage you to look at the context. Now, this involves the literary meaning of phrases and sentences, as well as the meaning of context of this course. It is our language, which includes all of what we discussed earlier, works together to convey a particular meaning. Clearly, context involves a lot of other things. As the researcher, when you select your artifacts, you want to look for and be able to identify the context in which the language is used. So on the next slide, I've created a list of things that you can look out for. In our plan of investigation, we already selected the artifacts that we wanted. One must be an article and any two other pieces. And if you missed my last video on that, be sure to check it out, or I'll post a link in the description box for you. Now, once you have selected your artifact, those three pieces, you need to know how is it that the creator used the language, the written language, and the oral language. And if it's an image, how is it that these images can be conveyed into words? Why is it that the author used possibly the color black over white? Why did the author use so many descriptive words that are negative, and we'd call them negative descriptors, over positive ones? Why did the author use this particular device over that? Why is the author focusing the piece on the younger generation in comparison to the older generation? All of these things are things that you want to take into consideration when you think about the use of language. So as a student, you can look for in any of your artifacts the writer's tone, the reader's or the audience mood, the writer's style and technique used, vocabulary used, the connotative and the denotative meaning of words, whether they are negative or positive, the writer's purpose, intention, intended audience, body language, tone of voice, and the list goes on. Additionally, you want to look at the register. Now, this has to do with whether the language that you used is formal, informal, neutral, or mixed. So the language that you and I are using now, is it formal? Is it informal? Is it neutral? Is it mixed? What do these terms mean? The formal registry or language, it is used in business circles. As it says, formal language. It avoids slangs and colloquial expressions and jargons and cliches and contractions and uses more complete sentence. And it is most appropriate for professional writing, professional setting. And when we think about professional, we automatically think business-like, right? So some examples of these are letter of complaint, some essays, not all, report writing, official speech, announcement, and professional emails or business letters. Now, the informal register is more casual and intimate and spontaneous, and this is more appropriate for friends and persons who you know really well. As the word suggests, is informal, we think of examples like personal emails and friend letters and blogs. These are some artifacts that we use in our SBA, diaries and journal entries, and the list goes on. The neutral language register, it focuses on the non-emotional and sticks to facts. So this is more appropriate for technical writing. Again, some letters, articles, reviews, and other pieces. Finally, the mixed language register. It is a combination of both formal and informal, or a mixture of any of the language registers. We see this most times in songs and poems and stories, where you see formal language mixed with a little bit of Creole, or informal mixed with a little bit of Creole, right? So that is what the mixed register is. If you are looking at a poem, for example, you might want to consider the form of the poem, as well as the structure. Now, these are also aspects in which language is used to create the form and structure. The form of the poem basically focuses on the genre of, and we know and should know that there are different genres in literature. And under these genres, there are other genres for each. For example, prose fiction is a genre of literature. Under this, we have short stories and novels and novellas, etc. Genres of poetry are sonnets, free verse, ballads, and the list goes on. The structure of the poem, however, is the shape of the poem. You know, how the poem looks on the paper, how the short story is presented, how the novel information, the plot structure, and all of that is presented in the book or the poem or on the piece. So the form looks at the genre type and the structure looks at the setup of it. In looking at that, you also want to consider the title of the poem or the piece used, the thematic concerns presented, the use of literary devices and or figurative devices. Consider too the use of symbols, contrast, irony, and the effectiveness of these. If you're analyzing an image or any kind of photograph, you might want to think about the use of colors and why the colors are used. As I gave an example earlier, in a particular image, the artist might decide to use white. And we know that white symbolizes a particular thing. And we know that black symbolizes a particular thing. Why did the artist use white in comparison to black? The list goes on. So you think about the colors used, the images used, and why. You also think about the background images, if there are any, and make mention of them and explain their effectiveness. If there are words on these pictures or images, make mention of them too and identify why they might be used. Again, the title, the position of the people or images on the picture or image, the texture and the text features that are used. And this also applies to looking at artifacts. Finally, the size and or shape of the different pieces on the image or background information on the image. There is no set way to begin your reflection tool. And this is why it's so difficult for many people, because there's no outline. Unlike the reflection one and the plan of investigation and the written report, there are sentences that can guide you, as in write this for sentence one, write this for sentence two. But for the reflection tool, you don't have any of those. And so you need to be able to identify the use of language, which are any of these used in the pieces that you've selected. Nonetheless, you can begin by making mention of any of the above. And as the student, you are looking to see how they used it and its effectiveness. Many persons don't understand effectiveness in literature or even in language. When we talk about effectiveness, we talk about the success of the use of language. Whatever aspect of language was used, was it successful in creating the message, the image, whatever it is that the creator wanted us as the audience or readers to get? Were they successful? Again, there is no set way to write reflection tool. However, I will give you a few pointers. 1, identify the aspect of language used by the author, poet, artist, playwright, and state what it is. 2, explain how it is used. 3, explain the effectiveness. And 4, for any information about reflection tool, you can purchase a copy of this text. It is sold on all Amazon platforms. It is a latest version of a CAT guide that is guaranteed to help students get the full marks in their English Language SBA. This is an example of what the chapters look like so that you can see that all the help that you need for each section of the SBA is there. Additionally, there are many students' feedback given, and these are just a few. One student reported that, I just want to say that the SBA book is very simple for me to understand, especially when I get disconnected from class and return and my teacher has moved on. Honestly, I feel like I'm ahead of the class since having the book. I rarely ever get frustrated about the language SBA. Wish I could say the same for all SBAs. I love the reflection tool the most, as that is where we currently are in class. Thanks again, and I hope that your book reach other students. I hope so too. So if you have not yet gotten a copy, you can get your ebook or you can get your paperback. These are just feedback from some of your peers, persons who are also doing the SBA, in grade 11 and grade 10. Now, we're going to be looking at an image. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do so, where you will see that the running theme or the recurrent theme and sub-theme is corruption, and the sub-theme being the impact of corruption within the Jamaican educational system. The plan of investigation is already done on that, and the reflection one. So we're going to be using the same theme and sub-theme so that persons do not get confused or lost throughout the entire process. Please note that I've added a link to where the picture can be found. Now, when we look at an image, it's not the easiest thing to analyze for reflection too. That's because it's just a picture. And some students say, oh my God, there are no words. I don't know what I'm looking for. Based on the information I just gave to you, you're going to be using that to analyze your images or any photographs that you have. Now, when we look at the image, we look for what is literally there. Ask yourself, what do I see? Now, what I see is a student with a diploma in one hand, suggesting that he has graduated. When you do find what you see, jot them down and jot down what it tells you. So I see a student with a diploma in his hand and it suggests that he has graduated. This diploma can be seen in the mirror that it reflects. And in the next hand, a stack of cash, which is behind him, suggesting that nepotism is involved in him getting his diploma. It also creates this image that he obviously paid for the diploma. It wasn't earned the honest and natural way. While it is not there in words, the artist used irony. Now, why is irony even a device? It can be seen in the reflection of his graduation cap. Again, suggesting one. Now, if you notice, there are two. In the mirror, we see a cap where his tussle is on that side, suggesting he's graduated. And on his head, the image itself shows him wearing a clown's hat with the word dunce on it. This can be seen in the reflection of his graduation cap, suggesting that he has graduated, and the clown hat suggests that he is clearly a fool. The word dunce on it is important because it reinforces this idea that he is not smart in real life. However, he has been able to graduate, and this is because corruption was able to buy him what he wants. The word dunce also has a negative meaning, especially within the Caribbean where we call people dunce. You know what we mean. So the intended audience is also highlighted through the picture. We can see that because we know from this image that it is directed to students and anyone who is associated with the education system. His face also tells a story. If you look at his face, now there is this level of slyness in his look, as if he's mocking those who did it the right way. It's that feeling of, I got away with it. Now notice that evil look and laugh that you see. It's like that look that says, it makes you feel like he has won and he knows that he has won. You want to look at the facial expression, if there are images there. We normally look in a mirror to see what we look like, to fix up ourselves and to make it look better. Now, the image really gives us a true reflection of what we are, who we are, etc. What it sees, and what it gives, because that's what it is. This mirror reminds me of the poem Mirror by Sylvia Plath, where the mirror reflects what it sees without any preconception. It is the same thing with this mirror. It reflects a dunce who has paid for his education. This mirror could be symbolic in the sense that it is showing the true image of the student and that nepotism and corruption in education can get people with money what they want. The overall thematic concerns comes out from all of this too, which is corruption and, of course, appearance versus reality. The stool, that's an object in the picture. Now notice the way that he even sits on it. Notice his body language and his position. He appears comfortable. It could imply that this is not his first time. This is not his first rodeo at corruption within the educational system. The position of him also suggests that he understands the persons and the education system and what it takes to get what he wants. Also, the image is done on a white background. The white in this could also suggest that whatever is done in the dark, which is seen on the reflection of his foot there, that shadow, that dark shadow, darkness, and then the white, it could suggest that whatever is done in the dark could come to light. As I said before, reflecting on an image and the use of language on an image is not the easiest thing. And this is why I did the image for you. There are so many things to look at. If you're a lit student, it should make it easier for you. But if you aren't, then you are going to be following the tips I give to you. Look at every single detail. Look at the word, look at the color, look at the position, look at the image, look at the facial structure, the body language, the images used, and think about the symbolism of each, if necessary. What are some of the things that we see in this image that we can consider as the use of language? They are colors is a use of language in the image. The images that we see, which is a graduation cap, the clown's hat, the money behind his back, the mirror, the stool, and the diploma. Now, for all of these images, you can decide if they are symbolic in presenting the author's message or intention. We can look at the use of the words, the background images that we see, the position of the person, the facial expression, and in doing so, we can look at if any of these ideas presented might be contrasting each other, might be symbolic, might be ironic, and any other device that you can think of. Now that you know what we are looking for in an image when it comes to use of language, let us look at a sample reflection tool. I decided that I wanted to focus on about 3 of them, which would be the colors, the use of the word dunce, a few other images, and the device. So these are the things that I'm going to be focusing on. The reflection, the sample reflection reads, the image is laced with irony as it depicts a student who is considered an extremely poor performer or a dunce. And of course, because I got the image from Glazed 2018, I put it there because the word comes from the image to avoid plagiarism. The irony is also seen in the symbolic nature of the hat that he wears. The graduation cap suggests that he is educated and qualified to enter his selected profession, and the clown's hat suggests how unqualified he truly is. This helps to highlight the artist's use of contrast, and through this, he shows how people in the education system can become top achievers without working for it. Additionally, the mirror is symbolic of what truly exists in the education system, and the money hidden behind the student's back shows one of the many forms of corruption in the Jamaican educational system. This helps to highlight the themes of appearance versus reality, as well as corruption and how deeply embedded it is in the Jamaican educational system. This is a sample of the reflection piece. And again, I am going to point out to you that if you need further assistance, get a copy of this book. You will not regret it. I can guarantee that much. This is the end of our lesson. It is now your time to do your reflection too. I hope that the video was beneficial for you and you learned something. Remember that the book is sold on Amazon. You can get it there, or you can reach out to me in the description section of this video. Please remember, like this video, leave a comment. Also, do not forget to subscribe. Also, do not forget to subscribe to my channel. Last but not least, hit that good old notification bell so that when I post videos like this, you will be the first to know. Until then, bye.